And some days it starts quicker than others. There we go. And we're just going to start early because we can. Here on the double eights, August 8th, 2023. Welcome to Triple T number 84. 84. Woo! Rock and roll. My name is TJ Zebel, and I'm your host for the evening. I'd like to call myself a professional problem solver, which I always have to follow by, no, I don't know everything. I just have this unique way of being able to ask questions to help people get the answers they're looking for. I help people with depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD. I do corporate coaching. I work with professional athletes and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I do have a website, which is TSWB.com, thetallskinnywhiteboy.com. Yes, that is actually what it stands for. You'd be amazed at how many people are really? Yeah, I can't make that up. I do offer a free 30-minute consultation. That is your chance to spend 30 minutes with me, asking questions, seeing if we're a fit, if you've got some challenges or things you just want help with. If I'm a fit, I'll let you know. If I'm not, I will also let you know, and I will do my best to help you find anybody, the right person to get your situations, your answer, your all of the above, whatever you're looking for. And for those of you joining live, get your questions and your topics ready for the second hour so that we don't burn up 5 minutes while you guys are all being the kind chipmunks. After you? No, after you. No, really, after you. I don't want to be the one asking all the questions. Somebody has to, so get your questions ready. And it's good to see some familiar faces back again. I am so blessed. And for those of you watching live on YouTube, hi, Mom. Yep, my mom tunes in, and that makes me feel happy. And for those of you watching the recordings, thank you. I ask all of you, please do all the YouTube etiquette. Go to my YouTube channel, click the subscribe and the like button and ring the bell and leave comments and all that stuff so at least people can see that you've been there. Leave your track, leave your mark. And Elijah said, I like to ask questions in response to other questions. Yes, have your squirrels chase our squirrels. It's a squirrel fest. Anybody got anything they would like to share from the last time we were all together and had all this fun? Any ahas, epiphanies, cool stuff? Yes, no, we were chatting before. Anybody want to share what we were chatting before, or do we want to dive right in?
I didn't know if Zava was going to pop in and chime in on this one.
Yes, we're allowed to keep secrets here as well.
The one that I came up with about, I think maybe 25 minutes before Triple T was that nothing is as it seems. And it was very Yoda, like you must unlearn what you have learned. And I was doing something today with my head brain and my heart brain and my stomach brain. And my stomach brain, I was vomiting. And when I had asked, why am I vomiting? And it said, because you're vomiting up the lies that you've been fed. And I was like, whoa. That one was pretty big.
Woo!
See?
Okay. I hope you're feeling better now.
We're good. We're good.
Good answer. Anybody else? All right. Well, this week's topics being we didn't get to it last week, which seems to be about 2/3 of the time. I put up 3 topics, and 2/3 of the time or more, we get to the first 2 and not to the second. So following over from last week is food, life and beliefs, and then compliments, and then travel. So, and looks like the lovely Fran is joining us from down under. Always a blessing to have our intercontinental people joining us. Thank you for taking the time, Elijah, as well from the UK. Food, yes, that one of those things that we gotta have. Food, oxygen, water, love, housing, right? It's up there, but you know, there are ways around that. But that food and water thing. And because of that, there are so many people that oh, look at that. Kevin just shared resonance breathing. I don't even know how to say that word. You stumped me, Kevin. But it
ameliorates plaque buildup.
And what is ameliorates? And
it helps to make it not so severe.
Oh,
so it helps prevent plaque buildup, and it helps to get those proteins that build up and makes Alzheimer's plaques, helps them to get flushed out to the lymphatic system.
Rock and roll.
And the resonance breathing is a simple method of just 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, and then doing that for 10 to 20, 30, for however long throughout the day.
5 in, 5 out.
Mm-hmm. But it's just a study that was just released in March of this year. So it's made me excited, and I wanted to share.
Awesome. That's what we're here for, is sharing information, especially, because we're kind of on the, I don't know if you would call us on the outskirts of the health industry, but like Dr. David likes to joke that people look for us because they can't find Witch Doctor in the yellow pages. Back to food, which is also, well, probably part of the deal. There are I get to work with a number of clients that have built up belief systems and feelings towards food, and finding that a lot of it is programming. If you grew up in certain parts of the world, certain things were a normal delicacy, and for other parts of the world, we would look at those foods and go, yeah, nope, not gonna do it, nope. And there's tradition stuff, and there's also I'm gonna call them limiting beliefs and possibly damaging beliefs that get installed, especially with societal pressures. I'm finding a majority of it, not all, but a good majority of it unfortunately, is women who look at food and have to deal with food in a manner because of the things that society has put out. And as such, we have to go in and reframe and help to get rid of the old programs and the things that they see in that God forbidden mirror and what that scale actually means and all the above. And the more I work on this, the more varied thought processes I run across. And we're finding, I'm finding that some of the stuff, the belief systems, the software programs, whatever you want to call it, some were put in as early as like infant. Things that happened possibly with parentals, sometimes with babysitters, sometimes conversations overheard, and of course, friends, because they can be so kind. And then getting into school where peer pressure, oh my word. And so it's not surprising that there are challenges, especially regarding foods. And it's up to us as agents of change to help these people through into healthy beliefs, healthy lifestyles. And every region has their challenges. I know. I grew up in Minnesota. Oh, comfort food. Oh, yeah. My wife looks at me when I pick out some recipes that I grew up with, and she's like, no? Like, that's carbs on carbs with dairy on dairy? I'm like, yeah, but it's good, hon. Ooh. You know how many calories are in a forkful? I'm like, no, I just know it's good. It's good. Minnesota, I guess, is also, state fair food famous because we started off with little beer batter anything. Oh yeah, deep fried Oreo, deep fried Twinkie. Minnesota, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you're watching the recording or whatever, put it down in the comments of the recording. I think Minnesota was the first place to do deep fried butter. Yes. Yes. Beer batter, a stick of butter, and drop it in. Not exactly endorsed by the American Heart Association, but somebody out there will buy it. And I wanted to bring this up, especially now that a lot of people, I believe, are in that summertime. They're out in beach wear or hot temperature wear. I'm in Dallas, Texas area where the temperature outside for the last 6-8 weeks has been 100 and help me Jesus degrees out. It doesn't matter how much water you drink. You can drink and drink and drink and never have to pee. Does save on the flushing, but literally, it's warmish out. We cool our house to 80 degrees. That's where our AC is set, at 80. And when you walk in when it's 107 out, it feels a tad chillish. I talked to my buddy in San Diego, and he's like, "Oh, it's hot today. It's like 84." I'm like, "Shut up. Just Mhm. Took his girlfriend to a concert at Humphreys on the Bay, and when they got done, she was cold because it was like 62 and humid air coming off of the bay. And I went, literally, no offense, if I would have been there and walked out, I would have been teeth chattering because we sleep in 80. But back to food. I'm curious to anybody on the, oh, Elijah, stop showing off. We've had a rainy summer. I get it, man. And I've got cracks in my front yard this wide, about that deep, because we haven't had rain in probably 6 weeks, 7 weeks. Yeah, when you walk across the yard, it's crunchy. So, and Colorado's getting their fair amount of rain as well. Go figure. Kind of like people and food, tying it right back in. There are some people that, people used to hate on me because I could not eat enough. And tall, skinny white boy. Up until about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years, no, about 4 years ago. 6'4", weighed about 165, 170. And ate enough for 3 people. People are like, "Hey, you're so lucky." I'm like, "Pay my food bill. It won't take long until you're like, where you put it all? What the what? Oh, where you hide it?" All you can eat Chinese buffet. They didn't like me. They didn't make a penny. Any buffet. They're like, "You leave now." So, any input, questions, ahas on this topic? I'm sure some of you have helped dealing out with people.
Oh, I have lots of thoughts on this topic. One in particular is when I think it was Abraham Hicks who had said, "You're all eating so differently and you're all having such a different response to food." And 2 people can have a piece of chocolate cake and have a completely different response to it. And I do think there is a significant amount of truth in that. Because if you had eaten the way that you were eating, especially with a reinforcement of you're a growing boy, oh, you're tall, skinny, you're tall, skinny, you're tall, skinny, you can eat as much as you want, you'll never gain a pound. When you grow up with that narrative in your head, you quite literally wire your nervous system very, very differently. Whereas when you grow up with a different mantra in your head and you think that everything that you eat will make you fat, and when you grow up with a variety of different things, you quite literally will have a different response in your body and you will digest food differently. And especially when you approach food with, I have to eat, or I have to do this, versus I get to do this, I get to enjoy this. Everybody's having a very different experience of food, a very different experience. And we each have a different say, is it nervous system, gut bacteria, or genes, or all the above? I think it's everything. It's, I truly, I don't think it's one's nervous system and one's nutrition and where this is. I think it's the sum, what is it? The sum of the parts is greater than the whole. Is that how it goes? It's everything together. It's your intention toward food, your intention toward what it is doing in your body, what you're eating, why you're eating it. There's so many things that I think do go into it that you have to unscrew the colorful word, narrative that you were fed growing up in whatever area you grew up in, if you came from a environment where food was not your friend.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. And that's why I brought this up, because the number of people with belief systems, pretty much anybody that deals with food has some sort of belief system built around it. And even those that were brought up with different taste palettes, or if they were brought up in a house where they were allowed to dictate what they liked and what they didn't like as children, and they suddenly realize that they're going to judge food visually without having to try it. And I've had a number of those as well. And one of the ways that I help some of, especially people that are picky eaters in front of me, is I will tell them, you have to try everything at least 3 times. Why 3 times? Bad cooks, bad ingredients. And they'll give me that look like, whoa, whoa, and I went, okay, tell me what's one of your favorite foods? Pizza. Have you ever had pizza that wasn't really that great? Like, maybe the crust was burnt, maybe it's one of those cheapo, party pizzas, whatever. Well, if that's what it tasted like the first 2 times you tried it, would it be one of your favorite foods? Well, no. Or I'll get, oh, I can't believe you eat that. I'm like, well, the last time you tried it, what was wrong with it? Well, I've never tried it. Then how do you know? Well, it looks icky. Okay. But I'll ask them, you have full permission to spit it out. You don't have to swallow it, but I do want you to take a good bite that has all of whatever ingredients are in it. And I want you to tell me, what are the ingredients in it and how was it prepared? And even on your favorite foods, I want you guys to try this now. Take a bite and analyze what ingredients are in it and how was it prepared. And notice how different it tastes. I've done this to people mid-dinner. They're already halfway through their food, and I went, okay, now I want you to stop. Take another bite, but I want you to close your eyes. Tell me what the ingredients are in it and how was it made. And all of a sudden, when they swallow, I go, how different was that? Did that bite taste? And they're like, wow. I said, yes, because you're no longer trying to shovel it into your gut as quick as possible. You're not letting it throw past your tongue. All of a sudden, your head got in contact with your mouth and started analyzing texture, flavors. How were those flavors put together? I promise you, it is the best way to enjoy food, and you will slow down, even if you're not a chef or a cook. I've done this with 7-year-old kids who were picky. I don't like that, it's icky. I'm like, okay. In fact, one of them was a good friend of mine's 7-year-old son who I was invited to stay for supper, and they were having lasagna. And he was, and I said, okay, just And mom was trying everything. Well, just take a little bite. And if you eat 2 spoonfuls, then you can have dessert. Now, what did you do? Let me try something. I want you to try it. Just try a bite and you can spit it out. You're just trying to trick me into eating it. I'm like, no, actually, I don't care if you eat it. I'd prefer if you don't eat it, because if you eat it, there's less for me to eat. But what I want you to do, I want you to tell me what ingredients are in it. Take a bite and just tell me what the ingredients are in it. And if it's that bad, you have my permission to spit it out, and I'm not going to let your mom and dad give you any heat. So he takes a bite, and I said, okay, so what do you taste? And he goes, oh, there's meat in it. I said, okay, what kind of meat? Is it, taco meat? I went, ooh, you even went beyond, said, yes, taco meat, but you probably don't like taco meat. Oh, no, I like taco meat. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, what else is in there? Noodles. I said, what kind of noodles? Well, spaghetti. I said, well, it's basically spaghetti, but it's not cut into ribbons. But you probably don't like spaghetti. No, I like spaghetti. I'm like, okay. What else? Cheese. What kind of cheese? Cottage cheese, cheddar cheese, taco cheese. And we went through this. All of a sudden, he had finished off the plate, and I said, oh, dude, I'm so sorry. You ate your whole serving. You okay? He goes, actually, that's really good. I went, no, you said it was icky before. I was just trying to trick you. I don't want you to eat anymore because, I want some more. So he only had like 4 more servings. But it was getting him out of the visual and putting his brain into his tongue so that he could enjoy the textures and flavors and analyze it and how it was made. My wife and I watched a movie the other night called Burnt, and it was basically about a chef that had been rising quite well, became a two-star Michelin chef, but got wound up into partying and drugs and lost it all and did his penance and was trying to come back. And talk about chefs who are a little on the bipolar side. Yeah, you could say he was right up in there. But to hear the way he talks about food and the analyzing and there was a line out of it that I don't want my food to be good enough to eat. I want my food to be such an experience that you almost have a big O. When's the last time you ate something and had a big O? And I thought, if you could find some food that actually would do that, it would change your thought process around food, wouldn't it? And being around working with athletes and nutritionists and things like that, it bums me out the amount of people that believe that eating healthy has to taste like cardboard or that you have to starve yourself. Thanks, Elijah. Literally never, and if you did, you probably never had a Big O eating. Well, no, but I've had pretty close. I've had some incredible food, life-changing, memorable food. Yes, Lenora.
I usually call that happy body food. And very specifically, I love when you draw people's attention to what they're eating. A lot of the time we're just eating to get something in and quickly. And it's a completely different experience when you come into the moment and you're present with what you're eating and you're deciding, do I really like this? Do I want to have another bite? And you're paying attention to how it feels as you're eating it, how it tastes. You're paying attention to the entire environment. And our culture is so quick to eat on the go and take it with you. And there's such a wildly appalling disconnect to food. And when there's this one book, A Course in Miracles, and it's by Marianne Williamson, and she has quite literally a beautiful setup every time she eats, and she makes it a special moment that you're doing something with your body. You're giving yourself nutrition. You're giving yourself literal nutrition, but also emotional, spiritual, and mental nutrition, and to pay attention. And our culture is so quick just of keeping it separated and not being fully present to being fully present.
Yeah, and I fully agree. When I lived in Europe, it caught me off guard the first time. I was in Paris, and my buddy that picked me up at the airport was like, "Oh, we got to get something to eat." I'm like, "Oh yes, Paris. I'm gonna try this." Where did she take me? Burger King. Burger King, and I'm like, really? Really? He goes, "It's new here. You got to try it. I thought you'd like it, you know." And I'm like, "All right, I'll play. I'll see if a Whopper tastes the same in Paris, France, as it does in Minnesota." But what I learned was something so profound, because got the Whopper, we go to sit down, and I look over, and somebody, a family next to me, had ordered a couple of Whoppers and fries, but they opened it up and they disassembled it. They scraped the lettuce off and had their little salad, and they put the buns over here. That was their bread, and they had the hamburger, and they put the pickles on the lettuce, and they ate it as a meal with a knife and a fork. And they would take the bread, take a bite, and they would have a little bit of salad, and they would cut the burger patty. And I went, they are enjoying a 3-part meal and taking the time, and they're talking. And here we are, have the whole thing together and see how fast we can slam it into our mouth and get it into our stomach. And it was just another little insight into slow down. Food. Eddie Murphy, I can't say exactly what he said in his stand-up routine, but that was another one. He said, if we had to switch the occurrence of eating and sex, if we could only eat as much as we have sex, and we would have to have sex as much as we have to eat, things would be a lot different, wouldn't they? Oh, a Ritz cracker, you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, this is a Ritz. This is so buttery. Oh, this is amazing. Okay, could I have another one? Could I just have crumbs? Oh." And sex would be like, "Oh, all right, it's about time. I don't know. What do you think? In living room or?" I would be fasting for over 2 years. Yeah, and so you have to, references from Raw, Eddie Murphy Raw. And it totally cracked me up until I went, that's a little too truthful. But it also changed, it really made me pay attention to how I cook. I did chef for hire for a while when I was in Phoenix area, and I've had a few people since that have watched me, the way I cook, the way I set up my plates, the way I eat, and I I even like to be CDO with my food presentation for myself. CDO, by the way, is OCD alphabetically, what it should be. But we eat with our eyes first. And if we get a good whiff of it, and then finally how it feels on the tongue. And for some people that are getting, yes, they get married because you think you found the bomb and eat the same crackers every day. And one day you wake up and think, hey, I just got me some regular old crackers. And the neighbor's got ice cream cone with sprinkles. How come he got sprinkles? But back to the presentation, take the time to nourish yourself, not with just food, but the preparation of it. And one other thing that brought up in one of Dr. David's trainings was when we pray over food, whether you're religious or not, if you take the religion out of it, it's the blessing putting the energy around and into the food that you're about to put into your body. Whether that be through just gratification, just thanks for it, you know, all the above. It's just another way of putting the best you can into nourishing the meat suit. It's funny because one of the studies that Darren Hardy pointed out when he was doing his recordings with his Success magazine, pointed out a study of a small town in upstate New York where they noticed that the life expectancy of people up there was outlandish. And the hospital there was like a little clinic. It didn't even have major care. And so, of course, they got to go up there and snoop around and figure out how is it that this is it the environment? Is it the water? Is it the food they eat? No, that was all pretty standard. Well, it must be genetics. So they followed the genetic to, you know, their ancestors. No, actually, their ancestors weren't doing any better than the standard. It was just the people in this town. And so when they exhausted all of the normal explanations to why these people were so healthy, they finally sat back and watched the people and asked them, what do you do different? And what they did different is they spent time together. They would take lunch breaks together as a community. And if somebody did something wrong, like got caught stealing, which was uber rare, but when that would happen, instead of putting these people in jail, they would bring the people to the town square and all love on them and go, this isn't who you are. This, you know, all you have to do is ask. We love you. You belong here. You're part of us. And that was they danced together and they did everything wrong. When they were looking at their diet, they were eating all the wrong foods, drinking alcohol, smoking cigars and cigarettes. And they're like, this stuff kills you. And they're like, well, don't tell anybody here because we're enjoying our life and we're happy and we love each other. And that was the only difference. Mentality and how they felt as a community and how they treated each other as a community. complimented each other all the time, hugging each other all the time. Walking down the sidewalk, oh, I haven't seen it. How you been? Big hugs, da-da-da-da-da. And they weren't pressured with time. What a concept. Which I'm going to let this roll right into beautiful is now a flagged word on Google. It's offensive now, apparently. Why not? Because everything's upside down. I love it when doctors use phrases like spontaneous remission or statistical anomaly when they can't explain stuff. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm going to segue into the next one of compliments because it fits right in with the, I'm not reading that one. Feeds right into what this little town was, and that's compliments, but it's giving compliments. And the harder one for a lot of people, accepting compliments. And then the even rarer one is self-compliment. Now, how many of you love giving people compliments? Yeah. And I've gotten to the point where I love giving, I call them flyby compliments, especially for women, because I'm a dude in this day and age. And, sadly, seems like if I give a lady a compliment, you can see on some of their faces like, well, what did you mean by that? I'm like, I meant that your hair is nice. That was it. Hair does look nice today. Yeah. So I'll just do a flyby compliment where they can wonder on their own. Hey, your hair looks nice. Like, he didn't even stick around like he was trying to hit on me or get my phone number or what. Wow, maybe he liked my hair. But I've noticed from societal trainings, we seem to have a hard time accepting compliments. One of the exercises that was done in Hypnothoughts Live 2 years ago, I didn't make it this year, sadly. Hopefully I'll make it next year. But was kind of a compliment game where everybody in the room got into a circle and we would go around and tell people compliments, what we found complimentary about them. And the last person would compliment you, and then you would step out, and the last person you complimented on would now stand in the ring and compliment 3 other people, and the last person would come in the ring. And the interesting part was Kelly, who was leading this, asked us at the end, how did it feel when, or no, I messed it up. You would give 3 compliments and then you would say complimentary about yourself. You are awesome because of this, you're awesome because of this, you're awesome because of this, and I am awesome because of. And then the last person would say, yes, you're awesome because of that, and I think also. And Kelly said, how did it feel when you had to say something about yourself? And pretty much everybody agreed that it felt kind of weird, kind of. She said, how sad is it that we can say so many different things about others, but we have a hard time feeling comfortable saying something about ourselves. And that's part of why I came up with the concept of questioning affirmations. And we can also throw in compliments as well. Because too often the things that we say to ourselves are a little less than complimentary. I see you guys are having a blast over on the other side. Yes, Kevin, we might have to work on your complimentary approaches. Yes, Fran. Mike.
Sorry.
There we go.
There's about compliments. There's a really interesting TED talk by a guy called Jai Jiang, and he had an experience at Kindy where everybody had to say nice things about each other, and then they got a present. And they went right through the class. This was at about 6 years old. They went right through the class, and then there were 3 people left. And the teacher was stuck with these 3 people, these 3 kids that nobody had found anything nice to say about them, which was really, really awkward. And how that affected his life and his feelings of not being good enough and rejection, and what he did about it as an adult. I'll post the link in the chat, because what I've observed is it has even more meaning to people if you recognize their efforts, what they've done, how they've been of service. If you actually recognize what they've achieved, and their efforts, if you recognize their efforts, they really take that in, and that really does hit its mark. People can accept that much more easily than I like your hair, or you're wearing lovely clothes today, or whatever. But if you recognize their efforts, that always hits the target, makes people feel good. Thank you.
Right? Awesome. I'm glad you brought that up. Great share. Thank you. Lenora.
Piggybacking right off the one that Fran had said about acknowledging people's efforts, there was a study that came out, and Dr. Andrew Huberman was the one that I had heard it from. And he had said there was a group of kids that they said, "You're so smart." So was that the that you were going to?
No, go ahead. Please,
okay.
yes.
He had told this group of children that they were working on something. "You're so smart. You're so intelligent. Great job." And they told this other group of kids, "You work so hard. We're so proud of you. Thank you for putting in so much effort." And then when they went back and they did another experiment, the kids that were told you did such great effort performed even better that by comparison. And the kids that were told that you were so smart actually declined in their performance, which I thought was fascinating. And I love that you mentioned that, Fran, about effort, especially because if you go back to like the word I was wrestling with the other day or a few weeks ago, easy versus easier. You can make things easier by learning tools and techniques and strategies, and you're still putting in effort, and you're still able to be proud of that performance. And why we zap that from children boggles my mind, because you celebrate their first steps and you celebrate them feeding themselves. And then all of a sudden you come to a screeching halt and you're like, "Stop stealing attention. Stop being the center of attention." What is that about?
Yes, exactly. Jane.
I just wanted to mention too, because I've been working on coming up with a list of them, but I mentioned in the chat the exaltation of our perceived negative aspects of ourselves, I think is really important, because there's a ton of power and a ton of positive things within those aspects of ourselves. And I think helping people to be able to see that and understand that is really going to expand society's perception of what parts of us are actually positive. Yeah, hidden superpowers, exactly. I was thinking about, I have very low self-regulation. Of course, that gives me the opportunity to master it probably. But what it also does is it helps me to be more authentic and courageous. So yeah, even in the classroom, I think that would be really cool if teachers could learn, the exaltation of different parts, so that when complimenting, they could actually point that out, even if they're seeing things that are being perceived as negative, because there's something positive within it.
Thank you for sharing that. Savo.
About compliments, some people can be really awkward, and those people usually are the ones who proceed with telling you how beautiful you are. So you guys had the example of the hair. You said something like to a lady, your hair is beautiful, and I like your hair. And she said something like, why did you say that? Or what do you mean? What did you mean by that? Which is very common for ladies to look for complex equivalence. What does that mean? It certainly doesn't mean that you're mean. It just means that the opposite. But going back to people who give compliments and those who can be really awkward, and they're usually the ones who give a compliment after compliment and they stay in silence, and it just gets really uncomfortable, especially for people who are shy by nature. And so then the other person tries to brush it off, and it looks like something like this: your hair is beautiful. And oh, thank you. Oh yeah, no, it's really nice. I love it. It's the shade and the way it looks on the sun. Oh, thank you. And then this person keeps going, and that's one way to be awkward. And another way, say in a flirting context, if you go out with someone and you flirt with someone, you give them a compliment, usually the rule is to have a little tease after the compliment. So your hair is beautiful. Oh, thank you. Oh, don't get too excited. That's as good as it gets for tonight. And that, or let's say you're going with a friend and say you're going to the gym, and you do this guy does the sit, and you train with, let's say you train with him every week, and you go, man, that was a good job, brother. Good job. How did you do? What did you change? How did you get there? Did you change something, whether it's diet or working out, different trainings or whatever it is? So that question that follows the compliment, it just makes it more sincere, as opposed to just awkward silence sometimes. So.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And it reminded me to also bring up the deflection and denial. Especially you'll see two ladies complimenting each other, but they're throwing them back and forth. Oh, your hair looks so nice. Oh, thank you. So does yours. The feedback. Or, us guys will be like, oh, your hair looks great. Yeah, nah, it's really frizzy today. And you're like, did you just take my compliment and toss it on the floor? I mean, it's kind of like, hey, here's a present. Yeah, I don't like it. And it's that learning.
Maybe they could have put more thought into the compliment.
It's possible. Yes. They could have.
I'm complimenting my hair.
Well,
What am I
yes,
gonna do?
but I would call it a beard. I would be like, yes, your beard is very manly.
You know, when I eventually hit puberty, it's going to really come in.
Yeah, well, I've got chrome in mine. You know, they put chrome on the classic.
I got a little bit of chrome going on,
Yeah.
but I'm still catching up to you.
Uh-huh. We call them
But I'm way ahead up here.
wisdom whiskers. I think my beard's over exaggerating my wisdom, but you know. You heard it first, right here on Triple T. That's right.
You said it, not me.
Yes, I know I did, and there it is, all recorded and everything.
You know, on YouTube, you can see the most replayed part.
Yeah.
I'm gonna rewind this bit over and over so that this becomes the most replayed part of the video.
Did that really come out in wisdom whiskers? Yeah. I think I'm going to make a T-shirt out of that. Jade, you got your hand up.
I just wanted to mention, in case anybody else has that problem where it's hard for them to receive compliments. I used to be majorly that way. And I remember the first time when I first started doing hypnotherapy, and one of my clients, you know, was like thanking me profusely and like saying how great the session was. I remember I felt pain in my chest. And so if people start to really pay attention to their body and the emotions in their body and how they're responding, they might actually notice that when somebody gives them a compliment, they feel tension in their body. And if they just focus on loosening up their muscles and opening themselves up and breathing into it and sort of letting the compliment into their heart, it can be really, really helpful. And so just doing that every single time somebody gives you a compliment, and I've found for me, it's helped so much. I'm able to just, you know, when people give me a compliment, just take it in and be like,
Yes.
thank you.
Now she's like, yeah, feed my ego.
But it feels good. It feels good. And it's like, it doesn't feel good when you close yourself off to that. And I feel you only receive as much as you allow yourself to. So it's the practice of allowing yourself to receive more.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Lenora.
I love that you pointed that out, Jade, especially because there's so much about giving and receiving. And if you are having difficulty receiving a compliment, which and when you're giving somebody a compliment and they can't receive it, you as the person giving it quite literally feel that unsatisfactory of this beautiful gift that is not getting received, that's getting dropped at your toes. I see you, Elijah. Hold on. If you cannot receive, put your arms down. If you cannot receive it, there you go. That is a signal that you are not a great receiver. And the other things that you're blocking yourself from receiving, what might they be? They might be compliments. They might be love and affection. They might be food. They might be nurturing. They might be financial. It's a give and a take. There is a balance. And I did not truly understand that until somebody pointed that out. If you can't receive a compliment, how are you going to receive money?
Yep.
All right, Elijah, go for it.
I want to talk about unconditional love again. And I'm going to keep bringing it up every time someone makes this mistake until you guys get it. When you give a compliment, if you give it with unconditional love, it will not affect you if the other person doesn't receive it well. If you want them to receive it well and you feel bad that they didn't receive it in the way you intended, then it was not given unconditionally. And therefore it was insincere. If you give the compliment for the sake of giving it because you wanted them to have it, and if it turned out it was inappropriate or for whatever other reason, and there could be billions of reasons that they were not ready to receive it then, it should not bother you if you gave it from a place of unconditional love.
Yep. And Jade put out, some people give with wanting. I call that fishing for compliments.
right?
You can tell the people that were fishing for compliments because they're like, oh, you again, hair, we're just going to stick with, oh, your hair looks so good. And you're like, thank you. And they're like, but you didn't compliment mine. Like, you didn't notice I just had mine done. That's why I gave you a free compliment, dang it. Like, come on, play
Yeah,
along.
not so free, apparently.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah. Give without expecting anything in return. And that way, no one can harm you, because the happiness that will exist in your life will be that which you create from inside, and you will not be dependent on anyone else or anything else outside of you to make you happy.
And that's part of why I hate to say it in a way, but that's why I came up with the flyby compliments, especially out in public shopping. If it's a stranger and you don't want to give them any reason to wonder why you said that, other than the fact that you were kind enough to say it, and just keep walking. And let's see what else we got here. Jade said, asking the why we do anything is important for the self-awareness of that and being open to the truth so we can embrace it. Absolutely. And my reasoning for complimenting people is because A, it makes me feel good. B, I'm hoping it makes them feel good. And I don't think enough people spread happiness and compliments the way it is. Didn't cost me anything to notice that, hey, that shirt looks great on you. Hey, I don't know what perfume you're wearing today, but it's awesome. Have a great day. And, they're like, oh, somebody noticed. Because we can do that. Yes, Savo.
Have you guys heard of the expression, if you spot it, you got it? It takes one to know one. It's usually, I was just reading Louise Hay's book again, and she talks often how critical people attract a lot to criticize. And the alternative is also true. The opposite is true.
Yeah.
So if we can spot it in ourselves, then most likely we can see it in another person, and then it can be very much sincere.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the top of the first hour. And again, made it through 2 topics and abandoned 1. But we can talk about whatever we want. Fran's got her hand up. What's up,
I
Fran?
just wanted to mention to Savo, to his face, about what a difference the kind things that you said to me on Triple T a few weeks ago made to my life, and my decisions that I made, and my ability to move forward in a positive way. So yes, all power. People who give compliments and can receive compliments make a big difference in our lives. And that so hit the target. I can't tell you how much of a difference you made in my life. Thank you.
That's right. That's why I wanted to bring this up, because how many of us have received kind words or compliments right when we needed them the most? You don't know what other people are going through. And if a compliment doesn't cost you anything other than noticing and the ability to speak a few words and potentially change their day for the better, why not? Why not? Well, they might think, so what? They might not. They might need to.
You know why I give compliments?
Why?
Because I'm practicing icebreakers. I'm not very good at icebreakers. I think once the conversation is going, I hold my own very well, and I think I can keep people interested once we get going. But I think walking up to a complete stranger and saying hello is still something that I'm uncomfortable with, and so I give compliments to random strangers to practice my icebreakers. And if it's
Great.
received well or not received well, it doesn't really matter because I was just practicing.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
That goes back to the sorry to jump in, the Jiang video about he set himself the task of 100 days of being rejected, and he deliberately set out to create interactions with people where he'd be rejected to give himself total resilience and create the space where he could just go up to people and say nice things or ridiculous things and feel comfortable. I'm sorry, Jade, I butted in.
Jade.
I was wondering, so on the topic of compliments, I know at least nowadays when men give compliments to women, it's like what you said, women will be like, oh, what does that mean? What do you mean? Right? And then sometimes there's a tendency to create stories around what it means. And so I'm curious, if you happen to be a person who likes to give compliments and you enjoy doing that, which I think is a great thing, how do you start to communicate, especially if they're, people maybe like in a group or something that you're enjoying being friends with, and you tend to compliment the people around you? How would you sort of communicate to them that it's not anything romantic or right, or that the stories that they're telling aren't necessarily the truth, but it's just part of who you are as a person and that you enjoy doing that?
Savo.
Oh, Jade, I see in your background diplomas from HMI. And I really like that about you, the fact that you're educated and you work on yourself, my friend. I love that. And I think the key word is my friend.
Who else is that something for?
I love that Savo pointed out. There was actually one that I came across on Instagram that when you make an observation and you can comment on it, like he did. Oh, I see you have diplomas in the background. You must really enjoy your education. It's a nice segue to be observant and to also add a comment or a compliment, whatever it is, but being very, very careful with your language is just something that comes, I think, in time. I've had people interpret my compliments as something very different. And it's unfortunate, and I do my best to learn from it. I don't take a lot of personal offense to it because I tend to be extraordinarily affectionate to people. I need to know that not everybody is okay with that. And it's just something that I've had to learn in time, and it's come, and I do end up switching my language thinking, okay, that one didn't fit. So for a while I would say, hey love bug. And some people didn't care for that. So I love that Savo pointed out, my friend, hey friend, how are you? And shifting it that way, it really does help, because friend is more of a neutral, even though I tend to think love as somebody like, oh, they're my friend. Like, oh, I love them, like LUV, not like, oh, I'm in love with you type thing. But it's still how they interpret the word. And that's okay. That's on them. But it's also on me to take responsibility to say, I need to be respectful of other people's language that they don't like that I use. So I do modify it from those lessons. And there are things that I just learn as I go. If I'm in a group and it's to a male, depending on the setting, I know I'm very aware of my distance to them. And I'm also very aware of where my arms are and how I'm posed. Am I posed in a seductive way, or am I posed in a polite, professional way? Being aware of how your body is very, very important, because we're constantly communicating with our body, and that's being picked up more than our words. You might be like, hey, your beard looks really great. Oh, it's so nice. Versus like, hey, your beard looks great today. Like it can same exact words, totally different tone. So just being aware and learning from those standpoints is the best thing to notice, being aware of the surroundings too.
Fran.
It's so interesting, Lenora, when you talk about distance between people, because you may notice that can change culturally and locational wise. If you live in a place where distances between where people live are very much greater, people stand further away, that you actually reach out with your hand to shake hands rather than sort of closer with an elbow. So being sensitive to your body position in relation to the other person and their cultural or locational variations gives you another really interesting way into them feeling comfortable with you, and being aware that you're comfortable may not be quite the same as they're comfortable. I always found that interesting, because being in Australia, where people have cattle stations so many miles away from any other person, they will actually reach out to shake your hand, and the distance is much greater, their personal space.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, very, very much so. Another thing I wanted to point out, and we kind of touched on it, but I want to touch it. Make sure you actually mean the compliment.
Yes.
It comes from your heart, from your soul, and it comes out, because they'll feel the fake ones just, yeah.
Do not blow smoke up people's asses. They will spot it a mile
Skirts or
away.
all other parts, yes.
They will spot it a mile away.
Yes. Sabo.
Also about that, one of the things that people may want to watch is the body language and tonality, which is like over 90% of what's going on. So if you tell someone with a straight across tonality, a compliment like you have a beautiful hair or your hair is beautiful, and then you continue segue into something else, it's one thing. But if you comment and you say, you bite your lower lip and then you create an angle and you look at them in a certain way and you go, I love the way you move on the dance floor. That's a different thing for a different time. So I think a lot of that can be recognized by people. People have really good bullshit detectors, and at least those who trust their intuition, they can tell when someone is flirting and when someone is just being sincere.
And especially those who are considered to be attractive people, because they get hit on all the time, like all the time. Yeah. And so they know, right? And also it's like angle, right? So if this is, let's say the palm of my hand is the front of a person and this is the back of the person, like going in like this is very confrontational. Coming in at an angle is much better. And you can actually get really close to someone if you stand shoulder to shoulder facing the same direction. You can almost touch shoulders, right? It's very non-confrontational because it's non-threatening. But if I get on an angle like this and suddenly I'm in their space, because their space extends at a 90-degree angle outwards like this, right? 45 each way from the front. That would be 90, right? That's your personal space. If I come in behind this at like an obtuse angle, then I'm not really in their space. I'm in their periphery, right? And if they want, then you can start noticing, like, do they turn towards you when they speak to you, or do they just turn their neck when they speak to you? This is like a gauge that you can use to understand how much are they interested, right? And you can also like what Jade was saying about how do you convey that your compliment is not like you're not fishing for anything, like you're not trying to be romantic and stuff, is you can actually like have your body kind of half turn and give the compliment that way. This is much less threatening than if I come in full on and say, hey, your hair is really beautiful today. You must use L'Oreal, right? That kind of thing.
That would scare me too.
Right, exactly. So you can kind of just, like over the shoulder is really good because it's very non-threatening. It also, in TJ's examples, it's where you would do your flyby, right? You could do it over the shoulder and you just keep walking and then you give them a chance to respond, right? So body language is major and your tone obviously is major, but it's something you get used to. And I think if you are the kind of person that wants to give more, but you're just afraid of walking up to strangers, then, just watch the TED Talk that Brian was talking about. And, set yourself a little challenge and just remember, if you're out on the pole, let's say you're out and you are trying to meet someone, you are trying to, hook up or find someone that's actually interesting for longer term stuff, whatever. Just remember the first 5 or 10 of the night are throwaways anyway. You're just warming up. Okay, so don't let the first 5 or 10 rejections put you off, right? They're throwaways. Now you're warmed up. Now you can actually find the one that And I would say one final thing is compliment everybody, be interested in everybody, and whether you're attracted to them or not, because what you want is to desensitize yourself to the situation so that when you do find that beautiful someone that you're like, oh my God, I really want them, you won't be nervous. Right? So you'll have had enough practice with enough people at enough different contexts and situations. Like if you oh, I'm not going to talk to this one because I'm not attracted to her. But then when the attractive one comes along, you're nervous because you haven't practiced.
Yep.
So just be nice to everybody.
Yep.
Right? And it will also bring out your inner Mr. Nice. And then that will be more naturally you being yourself when it does count for real. Yeah? That's just my overall general advice.
And that had hands popping up like crazy. So Lenora was first.
I love that, Elijah. What you had said, especially the throwaways. TJ had once introduced me to the idea of the practice room, and then the no longer the practice room. You are now in the professional room. You now have to execute effectively. And another one, I had to do a number of podcasts over the last year, and I actually did over 50 podcasts. And the person that had started me on this, he goes, first 5, I want you to bomb them. Do as awful as you can. Do as many things as you possibly can wrong, and learn from it. And so when you go in going, I don't know anything, it's just we'll see how it goes. And going in with the intention that it's the practice room, going in with the intention that this is just for fun, for play. What can you learn? Takes the pressure off. And you also get to learn, and you get to have that flexibility and that fun and that curiosity and that playfulness, and winning because you get to be victorious at the end because the intention was to suck at it anyway and see how much you could learn. So there's so many good things in that. So I love that he pointed out go in and they're throwaways, they're practice rooms, whatever you want to call them. The way that I started to do that, that I started to deliver more compliments, is I go up to people in the grocery store, or if I'm shopping at any local, hey, how's your day at the checkout counter? Oh, when is your shift over? Oh, your hair looks really fun today. I like the color, but whatever it is, because you're going away in 30 seconds. You don't have to worry about it. Or if you're walking down the aisle, you're gone in 3 seconds flat anyway. And it's just getting used to it. Literally the energy in your body of just saying something. And that's a great thing. So when you can just go in and be like, I'm going to go into Lowe's and I'm going to randomly talk to 5 people. Lowe's is I don't know if you guys have Lowe's over by you, probably do. Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever the case is, go in with that intention to make it fun. Or even if you go to the gas station or grocery store, any place like that.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to follow on from Lenora. You've said pretty much what I want to say, but going in ridiculously happy with a ridiculously big smile on your face and smiling at everybody, it's infectious in the supermarket, wherever. And when that becomes your everyday way of being, it takes the anxiety out of it, and you can automatically say anything to almost anyone. I think the nervousness does come on occasionally when you really want it to make a difference. But if this is your normal way of being, it's your normal way of being, and everybody responds differently.
Savo.
One of the things that I learned from one of my mentors, John Lavelle, the guy who teaches with Richard Bandler, maybe some of you know, when he was teaching, a good friend of mine too, I think, really good guy. He says he was teaching persuasion engineering, and he was teaching about sales. Same thing as dating, same principle. He says, someone from the audience says that they ask questions to the prospect. They ask questions like, how was your day? And John would look at him and go, do you really care how was their day? And you just met the person. And this guy goes, no, I don't. Then don't ask that question. And he gets in his face. And this guy goes, what should I ask? And you go, well, he goes, think before you ask. What is that you're really curious about? And this guy goes, well, I'm curious what brings him here. He goes, then ask that. And so it's the same principle as if, let's say, you go to a bar, you go to the gym, and then you see a person that you're interested in, and you go up to them and you go, hey, you look like an interesting person. I like your energy. I'm curious. What does this machine do for you? How do you get in that kind of shape, or whatever that thing is going on? And it can be as simple as if they're playing a game. How is the game going? It's just simple stuff like that. But being curious about little things, about one of the things that David Snyder teaches is that 3 magic questions about location. And I think it would be good if TJ explains this, because he knows that better.
I actually teach that. I forgot to mention earlier, I do have a training coming up at the end of September. I'm going to be doing a training here in Dallas on the September 29th through October 1st. And I have actually called part of the trifecta: Echo Talk, 3 magic questions, and values and criteria elicitation. And 3 magic questions, when you understand the mechanics behind it, what it is able to do is amazing. And I saw Elijah put his hand up, so before I go into another training, but Elijah, you had something you want to say or share?
Yeah, I wanted to remind people about the word about. About is a very powerful word, and it causes people to chunk down and go into detail. And if you ask someone, let's say we use Savo's gym example, he even used it. What is it about? What is it that this machine does for you? He said. But I would somehow try and sneak an about in there and be like, bye. Oh, she's gone. Lost my train of thought. Yeah, I would sneak an about in there and be like, what is it about this machine that helps your workout so much, right? And then because you've asked about something, they will drill down and go chunk down onto it. And plus, because it's, a who, what, where, why, not why, but who, what, where, how question. It's an open-ended question. It cannot be answered with just a yes or a no. And so you're inviting them to then speak. And every time they then speak, you have a chance to echo, you have a chance to ask about criteria and values, and you have a chance to go to a next level on the 3 magic questions level. So it's kind of easy, really.
Absolutely. And
Love that one.
before I forget, we had touched on it a little bit when we're talking compliments, and Dr. David had brought this up about target compliments specifically to something different than everyone else. Smart people want to feel attractive. Creative people want to be taken seriously, and attractive people want to feel intelligent.
I literally wrote that in your chat.
Yes, that's why I wanted to make sure that we got it, because the recording doesn't show the chat. So again, smart people want to feel attractive. Creative people want to be taken seriously. And attractive people want to feel intelligent. And too often, the bartending watched it all the time. The compliments that came in, and the poor super attractive one who's actually got a doctorate, and all the guys see are, ooh, she's hot. You're hot. Yeah, that worked. Way to go. You're number 9,000. Go play. But the ones that actually cared about what she did found out and went on that. Got a little more playtime. Elijah.
Play games.
Yeah.
And I don't mean mind games
No.
with the other person. I mean, play a game with them where you're both on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And turn it into a game. Like, one time I was at this bar, and there was a girl next to me at the bar. She's trying to get served her next drink, and I'm trying to get served my next drink. And my opening line, location, occasion, right, is, what do you think it takes to get drunk in a place like this? It's like, I know, the service is really slow. I said, hey, if we pretend that we're together as a couple, they might come serve us quicker because they'll think the order is larger. So she went, that's a good idea. And she put her arm around me and snuggled up. And then I'm like, excuse me. And he comes over and I'm like, oh, you were here first. I'll go next. And I let her order her drinks first. Right. And then he comes back and I'm like, yeah, I'm next. Right. And then, but we both got served. So then we come away and she said, that was really good. Maybe later on, we can pretend to be a couple on the dance floor and see if others will try to steal us away from each other. Like, all right, cool. I'll see you later. And I went off to my table and she went off to her table. But we had kind of created this game where it was us two against the rest of whoever was there. Right. And you can do that with anyone, anywhere.
Yeah.
We just kind of create a little game that's us two, and no one else knows we're playing this game. Right. And it just becomes fun because now you're on the same team and there's this little bit of back and forth. There's a little bit of fun and you just become friends much more easily.
Good job, Elijah. Sneaky.
Hey, I'm just trying stuff to see what works and what doesn't. There's no intention there. Right.
I'm just kidding. Good job, man. That's a good story.
And
what I saw there was the energy. The way you put the energy into the playfulness,
right,
which is very receptive. Back when I was single, I loved to dance. And I would go up to a table of attractive women and just go, look, I ain't here to take anybody home. I just want to dance. So if any of you are dancers, I will dance with you until you can't dance anymore. Then I'll dance with you till you can't dance anymore. Then I'll dance with you till you can't dance anymore. And I made it a challenge. And they're like, all right. We go out to the dance floor, and all I wanted to do was dance for 4 or 5 hours straight. And then when I was toast, I'm like, all right, well, I appreciate it. And I'm going to go now. And they're like, you're going to go? I'm like, yeah. Well, don't you want our number? I'm like, well, told you in the beginning. I just, thank you. Peace out.
Telling you guys, just like David said,
As long as when your girlfriend asks you tomorrow, how was your last night? You don't go, those 5 girls got me really tired.
No, that's what you say. Make her appreciate what she has.
That's up for discussion. Hi, anybody got any input on that? All right, silence. What do we got?
Go on, Lenora. I know you've been waiting.
What was that?
Lenora has questions, so she's waiting.
I always have questions. I don't know if anybody, guys, like, I'm like the Rolodex of questions over here. All right. So stories. What do you like to hear when people are sharing stories, or if you're listening to a speaker? What kind of things do they do, or who are some of your favorite speakers that captivate you, that really draw you in? What are their details that they're doing? What are the things that you learned from them? What do you like about them? What are things you don't like about them? Anything goes.
Who's up?
I love listening to Alan Watts.
What about Alan Watts?
Oh, there
Do you
go.
love listening to?
She's a
got
quick
you.
study, right? I love the way he holds my attention.
I hold your attention.
I love the way he doesn't just tell you the point. He kind of goes around the point, but in an interesting way. It's not like he's beating around the bush and wasting time. He's making several points and allowing you to conclude the combination of what, if all of those things are true, then what must it mean, and reach that conclusion before he tells you the conclusion. And then you feel smart for having figured it out just before he said it. You know, I like that he openly can talk about politics and religion without offending anybody. And in general, I agreed with many of his philosophies. I do aspire to be able to speak the way he does. You know, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. You know, I can do better still. But yeah, I really enjoy listening to Alan Watts, and I invite anybody who hasn't listened to Alan Watts to just pick any of them, just listen for 10 minutes, and you'll be like, whoa, this dude's pretty good. You know?
Thank you. I know you like Alan Watts too. Yeah, we've liked him for a while.
Another storyteller I liked was Paul Harvey. Anybody familiar with Paul Harvey and the
Very
rest
distinct.
of the story? For those of you that are not familiar, I would highly recommend bringing him up on the internet and listen to, he has so many stories, but he would tell you these stories about people, but wouldn't tell you who it was about until the very end. And it would suck you in, because you're like, oh, really? And he'd find all these little obscure factoids about him. And he had a very unique, very clear voice and dictation, because his mother was hard of hearing. And so he learned how to speak very precise so she could understand him. And then there's Vin on Instagram teaching you how to speak, how to use voice inflection and body language. And there's so much to communication that we take for granted. And the more you learn about it, and realizing that your voice is it's not a single note instrument, it is an orchestra. Have fun with it. You know, I guess I was blessed. I learned how I enjoyed imitating stuff at a very young age. In fact, I recently stumbled across an 8-track tape, no judging. Yes, I'm kind of that old, that my friends and I made of us impersonating a radio station. We did all the ads and everything. And so I got to do the radio DJ voice. Let's go on. Here's what's happening today. That's right. And we should play with that. Back when, if you were blessed enough to have a parent or a grandparent or a caretaker that would read you stories, bedtime stories, and put in all of the voices that allowed you to get even deeper into the story that was happening. It's important, but for some people it takes practice.
I love that, TJ. When I was little, my dad used to read me stories with wonderful voices. And yes, the voice is a magical instrument, and we don't play it enough. And there's so much more we can do than, even if you're somebody that uses it a lot and uses it well, there's so much more it can do. And this sort of made me start thinking about something that I've started doing that I'd love to share with everybody.
Please.
I joined a group of that's teaching or doing a series for recording for hypnotists. And when I first had a look at the curriculum, can't say it now, I thought maybe this was at a fairly basic level, but the guy's name is Lawrence Ackers. And he is doing such a complete and comprehensive span of everybody's abilities and taking them from zero to hero in how not just to record your voice well, how to edit your voice well, how to different sorts of editing that I hadn't even thought of, and all the background tracks and fade-ins and crossfades and adding binaural beats and all the other sorts of things. And I think he's moving into marketing and so on. These are the places where I've got stuck with how I want to get myself out there. I haven't known how to take that next step, and he's providing that. Anybody that's interested in putting their work out, I think this is a wonderful place to learn that. And one of my other hypno colleagues put me onto it. And, from somebody who was skeptical, I'm having a ball with this, and I'm able to ask him really insane questions like, how do you record pure energy? And okay, he might not know all the answers, but he's open to finding out and learning and helping me. So I'm so grateful. And I know, TJ, you are an expert with sound systems, and you've already given me a lot, and and now I've got more questions to ask you at the right time because I know that little bit more. So I'm enormously grateful for that. But yes, I'll put this guy's name in the chat, and if anybody's interested, I highly recommend this course.
Awesome. Savo, you had your hand up.
Yeah, no, thank you for putting that in the chat. I'll definitely check it out, friend. One of my favorite speakers, even though like when Lenora says like things that you like and don't like, there's definitely both. And he's he was my mentor. He was, I was having great opportunity to assist with his seminars, Dr. Richard Bandler. You know, one of the many things I learned from him is public speaking. I learned, and when I watch him, I watch so many things at the same time. And it's really interesting to not just hear about NLP, but also to see how he always uses NLP to teach NLP, uses hypnosis to teach hypnosis. And the way he moves, even though he spends a lot of time sitting now, but let's say in some of the previous years when he used to move on the stage and anchor the stage at different states while he talks to people, looking at certain people, giving them embedded suggestions, changes his tonality, the way he uses his gestures as he speaks, as he marks or just embeds certain suggestions, the way he, like I said, uses tonality constantly, uses voice like an instrument, and also changes from visual to auditory to kinesthetic, and then we have some gustatory, olfactory, and we go back to three major ones. And he does that, constantly looping the states, going from hesitation to frustration to impatience to want and desire to go for it state, let's say. And then he loops these states and then he goes back. And while he does this, he is also teaching. So he's teaching, he's demonstrating. Also, if he's demonstrating a swish pattern or mapping across, he's going to use these gestures, and while he's teaching, and then he's going to use the same gestures within the other stories. While he's doing the whole thing, he's opening up the loops of different stories, and then he's closing the loops. And it's not only that he's opening up loops the same day, he's opening up loops in the beginning of the seminar so he can finish the loops in the end of the seminar, starting with embedded suggestions for each and every person. So he also has the timeline for each and every person that comes to the seminar and in his mind. So, and that's just the surface. This is just scratching the surface what this guy does. He has such a strong sensory acuity that he can tune up his ears to be able to hear in the end of the room people just whispering. And so that's very interesting to be a part of that.
Absolutely. And add to that, I've always said I'm very passionate about the audio portion in the recordings, because I've always said that the audio will always be more important than the video. Because if you have good, clear audio, you now have three products. Because you'll have the video intact, you'll have the audio by itself, and with clear audio, you can get a dictation written out about what was in the video. But if you've got crystal clear video and the audio is terrible, you basically don't have anything.
I learned that from you years ago, and it's definitely a good rule of thumb to go by.
But the same comes when you're communicating with people. Are you talking a little bit of, and are you mumbling, and people tune out like just like that, like, well, that was exciting as paint drying. Ooh. Or do you have some activity to go along with clear, precise language to keep them engaged? And I get it. I'm just as guilty as other people at times. When I'm tired, my volume will drop down, and I don't talk like I'm doing right now. But you have to keep in mind, and it's the more you work on it consciously, the easier it is to tune your voice to what you want it to be. A really good thing is to study from somebody who teaches for people for theater, where you can learn to project your voice, speak from the diaphragm, let it flow through your vocal cords. Instead of speaking up here and just kind of letting it flow out a little bit and hoping that it touches somebody. We've got somebody on the panel right now who understands this even better than I ever will.
I understand it even more after laryngitis. Oh,
Yeah, right?
terrible. Terrible. I don't suggest it.
Being you brought that up, what does it feel like to be a speech specialist when you realize that you don't have the ability to talk because of...
It's incredibly frustrating, which is comical. Because especially when you're with little ones and you're trying to communicate your enthusiasm, you're like, I'm so glad you sound awful. Or you're with seniors and you're like, you sound awful. And you can't communicate that authenticity, that sincerity, because you were just having this straight, raspy voice that's very painful to talk. And you can't carry the same message and the same sincerity. It's almost like if you had a thermostat, your thermostat is muted, and then your interaction is muted because you can't carry that emotion with your voice. And it's very unfortunate. And
it's a different frustration than like when I was in Europe and realized that I was an American who spoke one language, well, maybe three. You know, I spoke American, Minnesotan, and Drunkenese after bartending long enough. But one of the stronger memories that I had when I was there was I was in Norway for 17. Mai, which is like 4th of July here in the US. I know that Elijah probably doesn't celebrate it quite the way that we do here. But we were in the town square of Oda, and there were people from about 6 to 8 different countries, all in the town square, and all of them butchering the English language because that was how they were able to communicate with each other. And I realized I was the only one there that only spoke one language. And thank God for me, it happened to be the one that I only spoke. All the rest of them spoke a minimum of 2 languages, some of them 4, 5, 6 languages. And here the American, yes, oh yes, what kind of languages do you speak? English, Minnesotan, which is a little different than sometimes, but when you hang around with Minnesotans and you watch the movie Fargo, yeah, that was a little blown out of proportion, except for some areas of the state, Dan. And then after a number of years of bartending, you learn to speak some little drunkenese too. That's why I can understand text. People like, that isn't exactly what I meant. I was like, yeah, I bartended for a while. I understood kind of what you meant because it's almost like drunkenese.
I love that when people can speak more than one language. I love that Elijah also put in that Microsoft Bing AI is currently the best way to learn new languages, which is phenomenal. I will say what's wildly impressive is that when you're traveling, even if you don't know the local language, people are still willing to help you. People are still wanting to communicate, and you can still get your question across. It's amazing, even though you don't have the literal words, but how you're communicating, when you're pointing, when you're gesturing, when you're enthusiastic with your tone or whatever the case may be. It's amazing.
And Big Squirrel just ran up to me. If at all possible, thank God for one of my mentors told me to learn how to say thank you and you're welcome in as many languages as possible. If you can't say anything else in their language, but you can say thank you and you're welcome, it will take you so much further than you can. I can say from personal experience, the amount of stories and experiences that I got simply because all I knew was to say thank you and you're welcome.
And there are still gestures
Yes.
that are universal.
Yeah, with all the traveling I did, like Lenora said, you know, even if you don't speak any language at all, you learn body language very quick. But one little story I'll share with you quick. When I had my photography studio, I was working with a company called Herf Jones that did all of the school photography, all of the sports and yearbook photos and all that stuff. And I was doing the some of the sports pictures, and we were doing the individual pictures for sports. And I looked down, and there was an Asian girl coming up, and nobody was really talking to her, and you could just tell, you know, she was like very anxious and felt out of place. And she got up to me, and because I wasn't sure of her speaking ability, I kept it very quick, very simple. But as she walked away, I said, "Tomo arigato, shishi," because I wasn't sure what nationality she was. And her head snapped around like I just, and she started just talking to me in her language, and I'm like, whoa. That's all I can speak. And so in broken English, I found out that she was a foreign exchange student from Japan. And when I said "tomo arigato," she hadn't heard native language, because this was a small town in Minnesota then, yeah, and she'd only been there for a couple of weeks. And so I said, "Hey, everybody, I'd like to introduce you to," and she's from Japan, and the way you say thank you is "tomo arigato," and if you want to make it very formal, it's "tomo arigato gozaimasu." And she looked at me like, and every single time I came back to that school, if she saw that or knew that Herf Jones was coming, searched me out, walked up, said, "Hi, thank you, how you doing?" You know, and we talked a little bit, but it was only because I knew how to say thank you in her language. So sometimes it's just that extra little. And when I lived in France and was traveling in Europe, same thing. I would do my best to at least be able to say, you know, merci beaucoup, you know, don rien. But at least I made the effort to try and say something and let them know that I'm sorry, I don't speak your language.
TJ,
Yes, sir.
you have to be careful to say beaucoup and not beaucoup, because
No.
one means
Oh
very
yeah.
much.
Yeah.
One means very much, and the other one means beautiful ass. So,
Yes.
you know, you got to get the pronunciation right on that one.
Well, if you're if they realize that that is the only thing you know, and you're saying it from the heart, not from the other region, you get a little more slack. I know that for a fact because I also learned when I was traveling, if somebody's trying to teach you something in a foreign language and you're in a group, watch the other people's faces while they're telling you what this thing means, because if you see the other ones going, it's probably not the right definition. And if this wasn't recorded and international, I would tell you a story about something that they tried to teach us in Norway about how to ask somebody if they would like to dance. And what they taught us was not, would you like to dance? No. Exactly.
Listen, I am the trolling champion, okay? I'm the trolling champion. I do just enough to not get in trouble, but still call attention to myself.
So, hey, it's
taken years of practice.
I was going to say it's a ninja skill.
Sometimes I'm a little more blunt with it. You know, Salvo, in your meetups, I haven't started trolling yet because I'm just testing the waters, but be assured that I will troll you soon as well. You know, it's just part of, you know, but then you're welcome to come to my meetups and troll me too. It's all good, you know.
I love my tribe. You guys are so awesome. Well, that leaves us a couple more minutes to retouch or comment on all the stuff we covered tonight. What a great episode. I appreciate you guys. So anybody got any more questions, ahas, epiphanies on what we covered?
I have a story briefly about that, but we don't have enough time. So just
well, it's not
that is
story.
a classic. That is a classic strategy, Salvo. Right?
Elijah loves that one.
Classic strategy, right? And it's okay.
You
because
see how people
make you tell it next week.
People have their own maps of the world. They perceive what's inside. It wasn't a strategy, Elijah, but if it was your strategy, I would get a better one.
You know what they say about if you recognize it in someone else, right?
Yeah, if you spot it, you got it. Now that's what you spot, right? Yeah, this was a longer story. I can tell you guys next time. It was about when I first came to United States about 11 years ago, and I didn't speak English, and it's like some embarrassing moments, but it does take more than 5 minutes. So we'll talk.
It's an excellent story, people. You definitely have to tune into next week's Triple T.
Exactly.
Right?
See, I advertise my friend Triple T, and you troll him.
Right. And,
you know, David.
I would do my best to say inappropriate things at the perfect moment during the story, right? And you don't want to miss that. So make sure you're here next week.
We didn't get to travel, the topic of travel, so that'll carry over to next week, which will tie in. That story will tie in quite well with travel because it's you know, I've been blessed. I've traveled quite a bit, not nearly as much as I want to, but I'm working on something that will change that, and I'm going to be back to traveling, which will make it interesting for Triple T. So we're going to test the format. Hopefully
you'll get to do your radio voice again. Coming at you live from Cambodia.
That's right. Coming to you south of the border. We're rocking it on Triple T. But it's interesting when, you know, I was blessed because luckily English is a common enough language in the world that you can usually find some young person that can understand a bit of what you're saying. That's why I have so much empathy for people that travel to here that don't speak English. And I'm like, wow, that's got to be a challenge. And so that brings us down to the last minute where I get the privilege to once again thank you all for giving up your prime commodity, that being your time, because I cannot give that back to you. And so for you to make the choice to spend it here with us, sharing your knowledge and your inputs and your questions to make this platform what it is right from here. And I appreciate you all, love you all. And I hope that I continue to give you enough to make your time worth it. And for those of you watching live, again, love you, Mom. And do all the YouTube stuff. Click the subscribe and click the bell and leave comments and click like. And I've also got a Rumble channel coming up too that I'm going to be moving a lot of this stuff over to. So make sure that I've got backups just in case. But other than that,
In case what? Are you expecting the worst? Don't do that.
what's
Expect
that?
the best.
He's asking if you're expecting the worst, and
No, but I like the saying, trust everyone, but still tie up your horses.
right.
I like the saying, there's no need for a plan B because all it does is distract you from plan A.
Hmm? But make sure that your plan A has a point B inside of it.
My plan A is built on the most solid foundation ever conceived.
I love plan A through to plan Z.
PJ, how about you, brother?
There's a topic for next week.
I'm just gonna
Plan
say,
B.
looks like we
Talk about
found
the potential of plan B and is it necessary?
That's why it's so hard shutting this thing down on a 2-hour timeline, because I know that we could. There are nights
When
we could.
I have a question. While we're live, I'll ask it while we're live, right? When we hit episode 100, can we do a 3-hour special?
That's a concept. Maybe I'll even do it as part of a training and in some really cool place. We could have all of us live and tune in some other people, guests from other places that couldn't make it. Coming to you live from Jamaica. It's Triple T, number 100. Yes. But until that happens, tonight I get to say, take care of each other. Go out, make the world a better place. Be nice to each other. Love you all. See you in 7.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Good night.
Good
Good
night,
night.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.